If you look at major companies and corporations like Microsoft and Google, they are the very entities that are powering genocide, powering war. You start to realize that a lot of the claims around AI for good start to crumble.
When people say AI for good, who is this AI really good for, and who gets hurt in the process? The India AI Impact Summit is leaning in hard on concepts that are important, but also often co-opted. In partnership with AI Now and Aapti Institute, we've produced a series of interviews with some incredible people who live and breathe substance analysis and meaningful action into these concepts. We are taking our time in advance of the summit to dig in with those experts. In this interview, I'm speaking with Dr. Abeba Birhane about AI for good. Abeba Birhane, if you don't know her work, you should. She is a cognitive scientist researching AI accountability, and she has so much experience puncturing narratives of AI for good and AI for development. And she does lots of research on how AI magnifies social inequalities and power asymmetries. So not only is it basically impossible to use it for good, it's also causing lots of problems that we should probably get a handle on first. So let's dig in with Dr. Abeba Birhane.
Hi, my name is Abeba Birhane. I am assistant professor of AI at the School of Computer Science and Statistics in Trinity College, Dublin. I am also the founder and principal investigator of the AI Accountability Lab. Most of my work revolves around evaluating and auditing AI systems, training data sets, and so on. So basically, we do the scientific work to produce empirical evidence on how does AI function, what's its downstream impact, and so on.
So I know you've done a lot of work on critiquing the framing of AI for good, given the sort of underlying foundational parts of what AI
Mm,
is, or at least large language
mm.
models are. Let's start there. What is wrong with AI for good as a frame in your view?
I think there are multiple layers to it. At a higher level, oftentimes the idea is to extend AI tools to solve complex, socio-economic, political questions. Fundamentally, these are not questions that can be solved by AI or any other technology. So these are like issues around UN's SDGs. These are Sustainable Development Goals, things like no hunger, removing gender violence, or access to education, and so on. In the case of no hunger, for example, this is SDG number 2. You simply have to provide food, or you simply have to create the environment for people to grow their food and to sustain their livelihoods with no gender violence and gender equality and so on. These are inherently issues that require political will, issues that require, restructuring existing systems, issues that require, again, political negotiation and so on. So, AI tools or any other technological tool simply just does not solve these problems, does not address these problems. But when you come down another level, also, you look at current AI systems from large language models to various simple tools that are used in hiring or even in government and in public service operations. And what you find is that these tools, from the data that's used to train them to, how they are benchmarked to how they currently work, you find that these AI systems are inherently also built with data sets and with ideologies that actually exacerbate inequality, that highlight discrimination, that encode and exacerbate societal norms and stereotypes and so on. And what you find is that even if you have good intentions, even if you have problems that can be solved by AI tools, currently the AI systems we have are geared towards maximizing inequality, are inherently tools that encode and exacerbate all of societal issues.
I love your expression of it's like trying to build a palace with rotting wood. I think
Yeah,
that's a really
exactly.
lovely metaphor for describing how much of a fool's errand it is to try and build on top of these systems to solve problems that are in fact embedded within the very systems that you would be using as kind of naive solutions.
Exactly. If you look at major companies and corporations like Microsoft and Google, who have been creating their AI for social good initiatives, on the one hand, but on the other hand, they are the very entities that are exacerbating inequality. They are the very entities that are powering genocide, powering war. They are the very corporations that are exacerbating environmental destruction. So the entire effort, it becomes a bit of an oxymoron, to use your term.
I'd love to get into development washing. So,
Mhm.
the idea of using AI to solve some of the problems you're describing with SDGs as an example. Do you think global majority countries are actually losing more than they're gaining when these kinds of technologies are proposed to solve some of these structural problems?
That's we're gonna have to wait and see, because a lot of the changes that the deployment of AI or other technologies is bringing in, the changes are very nuanced. There might be some surface level improvements. You might see some people having access to the internet or access to various services, for example. However, the underlying destruction, the underlying division that these systems are creating, my suspicion is it will take a while before it dawns on us to what extent the AI systems that we are incorporating and integrating into the social sphere are really, altering the social fabric again in a way that encodes, existing norms and stereotypes, and in a way, that makes the rich richer and more powerful, whereas people at the margins of society will continue to be marginalized. It's sometimes really scary the way you see some African governments are really jumping on the AI bandwagon, buying into this rhetoric of AI is going to leapfrog the continent into prosperity or that nonsense, with very little thought into what's the impact of this, in people's freedom of movement, freedom of speech. What's its impact even in the kind of knowledge ecosystem that is being built and developed, and especially with generative AI really poisoning the whale, kind of making it difficult to dissect and differentiate between what is slope and what's reality. It's getting messy and messy.
You've talked a lot about this challenge that AI presents to sort of see the world clearly. I think some of the most compelling things I've heard you talk about is seeking empirical evidence of the impact of these technologies, of their quality, and not being swayed either positively or negatively based on vibes around these technologies, but to like try and be a researcher and ask questions, find evidence and answer questions, and basically use that as a way of guiding decision making. I would love to hear a little bit about the extent to which you think that that's happening in these kind of geopolitical spaces like these summits. Is it getting any better or does it feel like it's getting worse? Or I don't know, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think these summits vary from summit to summit. The Paris Action Summit was definitely an improvement from Bletchley Park in London. And then we had a mini summit in Rwanda, Kigali, which gave me a glimpse into where the continent might be heading. And I don't have high hopes for the upcoming Indian AI summit. And I think the governments, whether they are, from the developing world or Western governments, tend to see AI as economic opportunity that they should be on board. And most of them also see AI in light of national security. Unfortunately, at these summits, there is very little discussion around are the positive claims that we are aiming or we are hoping that AI will bring. Is there any empirical evidence? To what extent is the empirical evidence sound? And a lot of the claims are made by either big tech corporations or AI vendors who have invested interest in ensuring that there is massive AI uptake and that these products are integrated across society. There tends to be very little, let's see the evidence, where does this claim come from? I think we're still kind of pacing ahead. with promises and potentials, with a hope for the future, which is all good. But the problem is that policies are being made and massive investments are being put into these systems. AI systems are being adopted and integrated into all kinds of spaces just based on potentials and promises. And you would hope that for governments and for these large institutes, they would demand a little bit more scrutiny and actual empirical evidence to support these claims rather than going with the vibe.
What do you think it would look like if a global majority country that was hosting one of these summits managed to turn the conversation on its head in a way that made you feel like they were taking advantage of having the opportunity to reframe the conversation based on the interests of people that were outside of the global north?
Oh, what a nice thing to imagine. I think for obviously what I would love is for these governments and for these authorities to actually make decisions or demand things based on what is best for the people, especially for the people at the margins of society, what is good for the environment, and what is good for democracy, for freedom of movement, for fundamental rights, and so on. Expecting that from these global leaders and decision makers is a bit naive because, unfortunately, for most governments, again, their priority is economy and economical prosperity, and most of them see AI as an opportunity to maximize economical benefits. Still, having said that, currently, the AI industry is just getting wealthier. A handful of corporations are getting richer and getting unprecedented power to an extent that it has become practically impossible to manage large corporations like Google. They have massive influence. They have captured how regulations are made. They have captured also the mass population's attention and perception of what AI is. They have captured the media, even scientific research. In an ideal world, you would hope that these government heads and authorities would push against this power imbalance, this unprecedented power, and you would hope that they would be a bit more firm in ensuring there are clear regulatory guardrails that protect the people, that protect fundamental rights.
Do you think we should reject the AI for good expression altogether? I know you have strong feelings about it as a frame. Like, what do you think we should stop saying AI for good?
I would be in favor of saying AI for good because I actually know a lot of community driven initiatives and small organizations that are doing amazing job in using technology or building technology from the ground up, that is allowing people to learn, that is helping people interact. I know several initiatives that are using technology to actually advance scientific knowledge, public communication, and so on. And you never hear those kind of initiatives being framed or labeling themselves as AI for social good. You will find that a lot of initiatives that are doing social good by using technologies or even without using technologies are done out of the sheer need and care for their communities. Yet they don't get the credit, they don't get the accolades, and they are not often framed as AI for social good. Whereas on the other hand, a lot of AI for social good initiatives, especially when they come from large corporations, large institutions, large initiatives, even the ITU itself, this is the very organization that is the epitome of AI for social good. You see them on the one hand building an entire organization based on the idea that I actually have a quote here uh, from Doreen Bogdan, where she urged everyone to make sure that AI never stands for advancing inequality. So you see these large organizations in public claiming to do AI for social good, but in reality, not only failing to practice AI for social good, but in fact opposing or reversing or supporting initiatives that regress social progress that support, everything that stands against AI for social good. So yes, I would be in favor of abandoning the term entirely and actually supporting small communities and small initiatives that are doing excellent work, stellar work without claiming to do good.
I think I'm also hearing that your problem isn't with the phrase, it's with the co-optation of the idea, and that it's this idea that you can launder your kind of the problems that you're causing by doing little pieces of work that actually meaningfully aren't about social good at all, but are meant to kind of reputation wash these companies that are behaving badly, is also what I'm hearing.
ITU is the flagship conference, the flagship gathering for AI for social good. So it's really difficult to think of the term AI for social good without these problematic organizations and initiatives. I'm not sure if separating the term from how large institutions use the term does it any favor at all, because the term has inherently been ingrained with the practices of these organizations.
What do you think, in your most ungenerous interpretation, is the reason why AI for good or AI for social good is so mainstreamed in these summit geopolitical sort of nation state plus big tech spaces like summits?
Ungenerous.
Your most
Okay.
ungenerous
What is
you are free to be ungenerous.
the most ungenerous interpretation is oof. Yeah, I don't want to be mean, so I will okay,
I'm
I'll be
giving
a
you
little bit.
permission. You're being invited to be mean, but I hear
Yeah,
you. Yeah.
at its best, it's a way to kind of paint somewhat positive image of AI technologies, especially in light of a lot of the backlash. There is resist or refuse AI grassroots movements that's kind of emerging. So the AI for social good framing and AI for social good initiatives kind of bring in, look, we're doing something good. Everything about AI is not bad and you can't criticize us kind of attitude. But again, I think maybe to the naive listener, a lot of those ideas might be convincing because it's easy to believe that to buy into a lot of AI is like magic. It can do anything and everything narrative. And if you have bought into that, it's then easy to accept that a lot of the complex social, political, economics related problems can be solved by AI. At these events, these AI for social good initiatives kind of normalize a much positive attitude towards AI and those that are building AI systems. Yeah, which is again problematic. You have to really delve into what is the AI that we are trying to deploy and what exactly is the problem or the social good that we are trying to do with these AI systems. It's only when you start asking those kind of questions you start to realize that a lot of the claims around AI for good kind of start to crumble and don't stand up to scrutiny. But again, kind of parading AI for good initiatives in these spaces will further normalize AI as a good thing and will, again, for the most part, people will actually buy, think that, these AI systems, these AI for social good initiatives might actually be doing good. So it's kind of doing a lot of damage, both in terms of like people's consciousness, not people's knowledge and understanding of what AI is.
And what do you think? I mean, what are you going to be looking out for at this summit? I mean, each summit has obviously been different. When you're thinking about the summit, are there things you're going to be looking for in terms of narrative frames that come out of it, political statements, particular actors or institutions, or anything, yeah, that you have your eye trained on that you're interested to see if it happens?
To be honest, I am not that hopeful for the upcoming summit. My intuition is that they are going to use a lot of the global south, the global majority narrative, again, to put people from the global south, especially people that tends to be at the margins of society. Again, it's those people that will be put at further harm, that will be further disadvantaged by these narratives and by the by the uncritical adoption of AI systems. So I'm not somewhat engaged with the upcoming summit, maybe because, the bits and pieces of what I see hasn't given me any hope, hasn't given me anything much positive to anticipate towards. Yeah, but I suspect that, the global south AI for social good narrative will dominate. And I would be surprised if that narrative is accompanied by, demands for empirical evidence or any critical thinking.
I'm, I'm, I'm sorry. There will be no empirical evidence or critical thinking. I feel like that is such a mic drop. You're so right, but it's so harsh. I love it. That was your ungenerous interpretation of Abeba. That was like searing and wonderful.
Thanks again to Abeba for joining me for this conversation. And as a reminder, this episode is part of a series we're doing in partnership with AI Now and the Aapti Institute called Reframing Impact AI Summit 2026. We've got interviews with some incredible guests, and you can find the full series on our channel. So do check it out, and thanks for joining.